you should not give more than 60% of effort at any given time. In fact, you should probably shoot for closer to 40%. That might sound a little bit exact. It's not. It's an aspirational target in order to keep you in a sustainable range of effort so that you can keep going about your business day after day after day in a way that takes care of you. I want to use a little bit of an exercise metaphor here. So most people, I hope, are aware that there are two types roughly of exertion. There's aerobic exercise, where your body is able to keep up with your oxygen needs and it's able to take away all the waste products of your activity. And so it's sustainable for a long period of time. And then there's anaerobic exercise, which is sort of the high intensity, sprinting, lifting weights, competing in athletic activities sort of effort where your body's no longer able to keep up with your oxygen needs. You start having anaerobic metabolism go on, which is much less efficient, produces a lot more waste products, and suddenly you have like buildup of lactic acid, you fatigue, you can't do it for very long. Most people can't do it for very long at all. People who are very well trained can do it for longer intervals, but ultimately the body is unable to keep up with the demands that are being placed on it, fatigues out, and then you have to rest and recover for a significant period of time before you can do that sort of thing again. If you look at something like weight training, the recommendation is that any given muscle group gets at least 2 days to recover after serious intense workouts, whereas if you're trying to optimize things, you look for like the super compensation window. You're going to be like 6 to 10 days after a high intensity workout is the next time you're going to hit that muscle group. This illustrates that the human organism sort of has multiple modes for different levels of exertion. And that's not just limited to working out. So that also plays out in our working lives when we're doing intellectual tasks or physical tasks. If you are going to work and you are giving 100%, you're doing something that is fundamentally unsustainable and you will necessarily burn out. If you have ever heard somebody say, well, if you've got time enough to lean, you've got time enough to clean, like unironically, or any other corpo bullshit retail propaganda, you definitely need to pay attention to this message because you probably have a lot of guilt anytime that you are not giving 100% because of the internalization of this propaganda. And propaganda works. Even if you thought it was stupid when you heard it, it still has an effect in the unconscious back of your mind, and it's still going to cause you to drive yourself towards behaviors that are not sustainable and are ultimately going to be bad for your well-being. So, we don't want to burn out. We must set the target lower. So in order to have just a reference point to come back to when we're trying to implement this in our lives, and I put up a little handy graphic over there with 3 regions illustrated. Sort of the lowest effort region is the sort of activity that is sustainable indefinitely. It's a sort of low impact effort that you can just keep going all of your waking day and it's fine. You don't fatigue. A little bit above that, sort of our yellow region here, will be the sort of effort that you can recover from overnight. So if you do this sort of effort for your waking hours during the day, overnight you will be able to recover. You wake up the next day and you're in a position to make that same effort again. You have all of your resources available. If you go further than that, beyond the 60%, you are in the unsustainable region, which means you will need more than one night's rest in order to fully recover. So if you get to the end of your work week and you're absolutely blown out and you find that your Saturday is spent just in a daze as your body tries desperately to restore its faculties, you're doing too much. You're putting out a level of exertion that is actively harmful to you. And a very important sort of touchstone that we need to establish for ourselves, because our culture doesn't establish it for us, is that nobody has the right to expect you to output a level of effort that hurts you. That is fundamentally invalid. And so if you're in a situation where your work is trying to get you to give 110%, no, don't tell them that, of course, but find ways to start inching your mean effort downwards. And even outside of work, just in your life, you have to be careful not to get into this red zone. So, as a person who grew up in the 80s and early 90s in a culture that was just steeped in you must give maximal effort all of the time, I find myself even doing basic chores, putting the laundry away, and I'm like, I gotta do this as fast as humanly possible. And the question that always arises for me is like, what do I really have to get to? You know, I have a lot of hobbies and activities that I like to get up to, but if I'm so blown out from folding and putting away my laundry at maximum intensity effort that I can't do any of those things, what was the point of going so hard? Whereas if I just scale the effort down, if I get down to a 40%, so my laundry's going to take a little over twice as long as it would going at maximum intensity. But then when I'm done, I'm not at all fatigued. I still have 100% to give to whatever it is I actually want to do with my day. And so if I'm at a 40%, just all of the time, then I actually get a lot more done. And when I'm really invested in something that I'm doing for myself that either fulfills me or advances some goal that I have, then I can ramp it up to 60%. And if there's an emergency or something really has to get done, sure, I can give 100%, knowing that that's going to be a cost that I'm going to have to pay at a later time, that I'm going to need an additional period of rest at some point, and giving that to myself without any sort of guilt about taking the time that's necessary to recover from an extraordinary exertion that was necessitated by the situation. Uh, you can go over 60% if the world's on fire, if there's something very urgent that needs to happen. That's what that mode, that red zone, that's what it's for. But you shouldn't be going there routinely, either at the behest of somebody else because they're paying you for whatever it is you do in your life, or because you're in a rush to get to some more exciting part of your free time. So don't go over 60%. Aspire for 40%. Keep yourself in the indefinitely sustainable level of effort, and you're going to be a happier human being.